Hey guys, this is the first time that I'm filming with this car setup. It's my first video in the car. I've got a mic on me right now, and I've got you guys on like a little phone holder. So this is kind of a tester video to see if this like setup works, so that I can like talk to you guys while I'm driving to work and everything. And so we'll see. But today I just wanted to talk to you guys on my way to work because I've had a kind of bad day, and I think that, I just wanted to talk out some of the things. So specifically, though, I want to talk about grief and just the aspects of grief that I don't feel like anybody really talks about, and like the aspects of somebody you love dying. So for context, about a year and a half ago, my grandmother died of cancer. And it was pretty sudden and quick, even though she was suffering for a little bit. We didn't think she would die. We thought she was actually better. And for even more context, my grandma was pretty much the person who I kind of based my entire life off of. She was who I really I loved her so much. She was like one of my best friends in the whole world. She was who I wanted to be when I grew up, really. I loved her so much, and I still do love her, obviously. And so she died, and the ramifications that have happened in my family since then have been kind of, like unexpected and just like weird, I guess. And it's something that I never thought would really happen. I guess the biggest thing that I've learned through the grieving process and through death is that life just is what it is, right? Like, as much as you don't want for things to be, like, bad, I guess, and as much as you want things to go the best that they can, like, life just is what it is, and everybody's doing the best that they can. And so, at the beginning, when my grandma died, we haven't had, like, a celebration of life or a funeral or anything, so I didn't really get any closure. And I would say I had a lot of resentment for my family, I guess specifically the adults in my family, like my aunts, my uncles, my parents, because they didn't step up and make that happen for us, the grandchildren, and for me specifically. But then, obviously they are going through their own grieving process, and like those people just lost their wife, their mom, and so even though I lost my grandma, they lost somebody too, so I can't expect for them to be all fine and be able to have and to plan this like party in her honor if I can't even barely talk about her. Like, I can't expect for them to be doing better than I am. And so that's kind of the first lesson that I learned, is just that even though I wish that we would have had a celebration of life or some sort of like closure, there's nothing that could have been done differently for us because my whole family was hurting. And, even though me and my sisters, especially me, I feel like I had to kind of stand in my grief alone and I couldn't really rely on most of my family, it couldn't have been any different because all of my family was going through their own grieving process. So yes, I could lean on my aunts and my uncles and my mom and my dad a little bit, but since they were all handling their own crippling grief, I couldn't really lean on them as much as I wanted to. And it kind of forced me, my grandma dying kind of forced me to grow up really, really fast. It forced me to realize that everybody's doing the best that they can, and that's all I can ask. And if I have any grievances about how things were handled, I can't really, say anything, I guess, about them, because that's the best that they could do, and there's nothing that we could change, right, about what happened. So, that specifically is just something that I feel like I wanted to talk on. Because, when my grandma died, I did have to step up. I am the oldest out of me and my four sisters, and I had to be kind of the one to say, hey, Mom, we need to go to my grandparents' house. We need to drive up there right now. We need to, do all this. I was the one who had to take care of my sisters. I was the one who had to take care of my parents. I was the one who had to write her eulogy because everybody else was too sad to do it. I had to step up and be an adult very, very fast in a time when I really would have just loved to be a kid and to have all the other adults handle it. But the adults in my family were trying to handle it. They were handling it the best they could on their own. So I couldn't ask them to handle it for me too and to carry my grief too. I had to do that on my own. And, you know, so obviously it's been a year and a half since that specific circumstance, but we're still dealing with that, right? We're still, like, I think grief has bonded me and my family together a lot more since we have that shared experience, and we have been more open in talking about our feelings since that happened. But I also feel like, you know, we're still trying really hard to hold our own weight and to not step on each other's toes. Sorry. I just choked on my own spit. Okay, sorry. We're trying to not step on each other's toes, right? But we're also trying to lean on each other as much as possible, and we're still coming together and still sharing, you know, our stories, our experiences. It's just, it's hard, right? And grief, that's, I mean, obviously that's not a revolutionary thing to say, but grief is so fucking hard, and it's so terrible. And obviously I'm feeling for anybody who's going through that situation who might have clicked on this video because they thought somebody would be able to relate to them. It's so hard, and it really has been, this past year specifically, you know, grief has been the biggest learning curve of my life. And I mean, it's taught me some pretty valuable lessons that obviously I will take into account in the future and that I will try to utilize. Like, first of all, nobody knows what they're doing, not even the adults in your life. The adults in your life have no idea what they're doing. And as much as you think that they have everything figured out, they don't. And that, I mean, really comes into play when you're talking about grief and about how, you know, you think the adults in your life should have handled it a different way when all they were doing was their best and all you were doing was your best. So there's nothing that you could have done differently because you were just trying to get through. You were living day to day trying to figure out how to breathe today, you know? And so I think that that's just something that's really important to talk about, is just that, first of all, your best is enough. And it might not feel like it, but it has to be, right? Your best has to be enough in order for you to be able to, you know, move on and to actually properly grieve. And I think that, you know, that's something that's very important. To mention is that your best is enough. And second of all, like, you know, life just is what it is. And as much as, you know, maybe we want to change things that have happened, you have to roll with the punches. You have to take the shit along with the good parts, and you have to be able to separate it, right? Like, I do not hold resentment for anybody in my family for the way that they handled my grandma's death. We are all in this together, and we were all doing the best that we can. And even if I wish that they would have been a bigger presence for me, all they were doing was trying to hold up themselves and their families. So I couldn't ask them to hold up me too, because that's selfish. And so obviously you have to say, like, your feelings about grief, they aren't invalid, right? If you're feeling like you know, are being ignored or left out, or the wishes of the dead person are being kind of tossed to the side, those are obviously all valid points. Like, if your, you know, loved one who has passed wanted a celebration of life and you guys couldn't give it to him, obviously if you have feelings about that, that is okay. But you have to be able to, you know, acknowledge those feelings, but you also have to be able to understand that though your feelings are valid, and though, like, you shouldn't, you know, change your feelings based on anybody else's opinions, you also need to understand that everybody else is dealing with their own feelings. And most of the time, especially in the case of me and my family, crippling feelings, crippling depression, crippling grief. And so you have to be able to understand and to put it into perspective what other people are going through, and have that empathy to be able to say, okay, well, I know I'm doing my best, and even though I wish that the adults had been more of a figure and had helped me through my grief more, they were trying to do the same thing for themselves. So I can't ask any more of them than what they've given, because they love me and they've done the best that they can, and we're just going to continue to do the best that we can and to talk to each other and to communicate our feelings and our thoughts. And that's all you can ask for. So that was my little, grief rant. If anybody watching has lost somebody or knows the feeling of grief, I just wanted to say first and foremost, I'm sorry. I hope this video helped you feel seen, helped you feel heard. I hope that it gets easier. I haven't found that it does. It kind of just gets harder in different ways, but I hope that you have a community that you can talk to, and if you feel like you don't, I hope that I've provided some sort of community for you. So yeah, until next time, I guess, love, Emma.